Thank you very much. I would like to welcome each and every one of you here joining us today, and of course those who will be watching this webinar in recording. So we really hope that you find this very useful. Well, first of all, as you know, EU consider this civil society fellowship as a very important contribution to the support of civil society and also to support the democratic governance in the Eastern Partnership countries. And of course, we are very happy to be the team implementing this project. Next slide, please. Just to briefly show you how this fellowship fits the whole project. We have a few very main objectives that we're trying to achieve, and the main ones is to provide people with the ability to participate effectively in the democratic processes in their own countries. And we're doing that through providing substantial capacity building activities, of course, this fellowship program. We also organize and implement civil society hackathons and then implement civil society tech solutions that will help people to work more effectively and keep governments to account. We also organize networking events and provide ad hoc support to various organizations, as well as the European Union delegations in the Eastern Partnership countries. Another important aspect of this project is communication activities. So we provide communication training and organize support for communication campaigns in several countries. And of course, for EU delegation and DG in Brussels, we provide various types of mappings, analysis, studies, and research to help them better support civil society in these countries. So as you can see, your fellowship fits very well in this scheme. And of those of you who will be selected to be fellows, they will be able to participate in various types of activities, get access to more intense capacity building activities and networking events, and also become the fellowship alumni, and we will continue working them for a long time in the future. And as you will see from today's presentation, those people who were selected and worked with us, they remain with us quite some time as the members of this team. So thank you very much, and look carefully and watch carefully all this presentation, and we will be happy to answer all your questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Olga. Thank you very much. So there are two different types of civil society fellow. But before we start explaining to you what those two different types are, we want to make it clear that it doesn't matter whether you are a community engagement fellow or a civic digital fellow. The benefits you receive are exactly the same. Okay, so all fellows receive some financial support, approximately €5,000 to implement a fellowship. And all the fellows get some training and coaching. And there, as Olga's already mentioned, have the opportunity to join networking events and to be part of the fellowship alumni. So the benefits are exactly the same for the two different types of fellow. But you need to make a decision of what kind of fellowship do you want to implement. Do you want to be community engagement, or you feel you might be better off as a civic digital fellow? So let's just briefly look at these two different types of fellowship. The community engagement fellows, they tend to be civil society activists who clearly have a strong commitment to making social change happen in their communities. And if you look back at all the different fellowships that we have supported since 2017, you'll see a whole range of different types of activities that fellows have undertaken. And here we're just going to give you a few little examples of the types of fellowships that you might be thinking about that would be suitable as a community engagement fellow. It might be that you want to be involved, or you are involved in policy making. That's often just at the local level, working with your municipality on municipal policies. But it might be that you have an interest to contribute to policy making at the national level. For example, in this call for fellowships. We're emphasizing the theme of the environment and combating climate change. So perhaps you want to make a contribution on policy in terms of a greener economy or on mitigating climate change. If you're looking at doing policy work, perhaps you primarily want to get involved in doing some research, collecting local evidence, or perhaps you want to do some local research in order to inform on a project that you might want to do later on with members of your community, stakeholders in your community. Perhaps you have an interest to get involved in monitoring public administration. In the recent years, we've had fellows who have been monitoring the implementation of youth policies in their country. We've also recently had a fellow who looked at monitoring municipal budgets and municipal expenditure. So monitoring public administration is another good way to get involved as a fellow. Perhaps you have ideas to contribute to capacity development in your community. So that might be that you want to do some activities that will build up skills and knowledge of perhaps some civil society members in your community or with the local authorities. And we've had many fellows who contribute to capacity development, not just through running learning activities, but in the production of videos and manuals and handbooks and toolkits to sustain the capacity development. As a community engagement fellow, you might also want to get involved in improving the accountability of civil society organizations, perhaps to help CSOs improve their integrity. It might be that you want to work with your involved in associated to help them to be better linked to their constituencies. Or another common area for community engagement is the strengthening of cooperation between civil society organizations. So you might have ideas to improve the networking of CSOs that work in your sector or work in your community. Or perhaps you want to make better links with CSOs across the border in other countries in the region, or perhaps cooperation with CSOs in the European Union. These are all the kinds of areas and themes in which community engagement fellows work. You should really go to our website. We'll probably say this quite a few times during the webinar. Visit the website to have a look at our fellowship pages, and there's lots of stories about what fellows have been doing in the past, and hopefully that you and help you to give an idea what you could do. But the community engagement fellowships is just one type of fellowship. We have another type, and Irina, my colleague, who is our civic tech guru in our project, can give you some ideas about the civic digital fellowships.
Thank you, Simon. Good day, dear attendees, and I hope future fellows. So yes, the second type of the fellowship that we work on and we support are called civic digital fellowships. They are a bit stand away and they are comparatively new addition. It's not that we got them immediately from the very start of the fellowship program. They were added in 2021, but with the idea to help people who are civically minded, but at the same time have a bit of the expertise in civic tech or IT or data to contribute back, to bring back to the society. So these are, in general, we call this as raise awareness, further promote, develop, distribute, and so on. Civic technological solutions, so technological solutions for community needs. If you decide that this is one of the areas that you might work, then please, when writing your concept note, when applying, please do select the Civic Digital Fellowship type. So what are the areas? We identified 4 potential areas for our Civic Digital Fellows. The first one is a more general one, is the advocacy campaign. All 6 countries, we work, the governments and the civil society, we all work heavily and hard on preparing and opening data. We talk about the data quality. We talk about the e-services and digital transformation happening in our countries, understanding that this is the way to progress and success of the country. If you consider that, if you would like to work on this area, if you would like to advocate for the changes, be that again at the national level or more at the local level, on changes and improvements in one of those areas, then please, this is one of the areas. Second type of the activities is a very similar one. It coincides with those, it's relevant to those of you who work on data and its quality. And in this case, we talk about making the existing data either machine readable, because very often we have the data stored or collected by the government, which is not machine readable, which is in the PDF formats and so on. If you have a way, and there are ways if you work on this, to make it machine readable, or if you want to collect new data in data sets, collect new data sets that can be further used by the society and publish them, that can be further used by the society to produce technological solutions, to do the analysis, to do some of the research. That's another type of the activity that is supported within the Civic Digital Fellowship. And last two maybe are the easiest one. I won't go too far. If you consider developing a new civic tech solution, or if you already have a civic tech solution developed, but you understand that you need to update it, improve it, promote it, and expand, then please, we also happy to support your actions and your activities in this area. I'll be here with you. Please, if you have questions on the Civic Digital Fellowships, drop them in the Q&A, and I will for sure answer them. Thank you, Simon.
Super, thanks, Ira. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of the two different types of fellowship: community engagement and civic digital. And on this slide, it will give you an overview of all the different themes and functions of fellowships since 2017. So we now have 200 fellows in the alumni, and you can see here that those fellowships are spread across the region. So in every country we have fellows, or at least we have fellows who are citizens from every country. Not surprising that the country with the biggest population has the largest number, but we really want to emphasize that this is open to citizens of all of the 6 countries. You can also see, by looking below, the different themes of fellowships. As fellows tend to be quite young, youth empowerment is often a big theme in the fellowship projects. But you can see there's a range of themes that fellows in the past have engaged with, and in terms of the different functionality of the fellowships, capacity development is a favorite area to work on, but also advocacy and awareness raising. We haven't had so many fellows working on the watchdog function, but we would certainly encourage that. We would like to see more fellows using their fellowships to do on accountability issues and watchdog issues. So you can see that there is plenty of opportunity for you as applicants to become a fellow, lots of areas in which you can work. And to give you a heads up for this first call of 2025, although you can make an application on any idea that you have, for this particular call, there will be some extra evaluation points available if your fellowship is addressing issues related to the environment and to combating climate change. So if you have an interest in this area, you will be able to get a couple of extra evaluation points when we are evaluating the concept notes. And later on in the presentation, we'll explain a little bit more about that. But the two things really that you need to have in order to be a fellow is, firstly, you have to be eligible. And secondly, you have to have a really good, relevant idea for a fellowship project that's actually going to lead to some change in your community, in your society. So the eligibility questions are really quite simple. You must be a citizen of one of the 6 countries in the Eastern Partnership. So that's Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. We ask you also that you have good level of English. And I noticed, I think already in the Q&A, there was a question about language. There is this requirement because the Civil Society Fellowships is an international alumni. And we put a lot of emphasis on the networking amongst fellows. And therefore, there is a need for fellows to have a common language for communication. So we do ask that you have a good level of English. If you don't have a good level of English or is not yet good enough, now is not the moment for you to make an application. We really do want you to have a good level of English so that you can fully benefit society. In our guidelines, there is an explanation about how you might make a judgment about your English level and how you can send us a proof document at the full application stage if you get that far, so that we can be ensured of your language abilities. You must be 18 years old, 18 years or older to make an application. So unfortunately, if you're below 18, now is not the time for you either to apply, but we will continue making calls so you can come back to us later. Previously, if you've already been a fellow, we can't award you a second fellowship, I'm afraid. And we really do need to be able to make a judgment that you have a proven track record in contributing to civic tech or to civil society. And as I mentioned, lastly, we really need you to have a great idea for a fellowship, a relevant and feasible project idea. Into the explaining more about HRO. We have a couple of those who are with us, who are part of our team, who are going to talk a little bit more about their experience and to give some more ideas of fellows. Helping with the coordination of fellows in Moldova, Ukraine, and Belarus is Elena. So Elena, let me hand over to you. You can introduce yourself and talk about a couple of examples from the countries that you coordinate in.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. My name is Olena Medvedenko, and I'm a regional liaison in Ukraine, Moldova, and Belarus. So I will be in touch with the fellows and applicants from these countries. And also, I was a fellow in 2018. And then I joined the team as a coordinator and now can help other applicants, other activists from the region while they are working their projects on the next stages. So I will tell you a few success stories from our fellows. The first one will be Alexei Marushak. He's from Ukraine, and his project was really civic digital one. So he was collecting, digitalized, and published data on biodiversity, and his experience in concept note was proved that he already worked with nature, he was an activist in this area, so it was understood that he can implement the project, and also he had experience in collecting data and so on. So the evaluation committee were sure that he has enough experience to implement the project, and it was the idea and the term was relevant to his previous experience. And also he mentioned the idea was really feasible because you have limited time of the fellowship. It's like 6 months and limited budget. So please do not think about changing global problems. Please describe something maybe small in your area or some thematic, but be sure that you will be able to implement this project during the times that you will have. And also the second success story will be from Moldova about Christina Berdinci. She was a fellow in 2021, And the same situation with Alexei. Her previous experience was relevant to the idea she proposed, but she was experienced in the area of working with NGOs to improving their capacity, and the project was also about that. But her experience was not over. She wasn't over experienced. She showed that she can learn from the fellowship, and she can contribute to the idea she proposed. So that was her advantage during the concept note stage. And also, what I can say about the Christina, she also showed in her CV that she was engaged in EU projects and was working with projects, and that was an advantage during, I think that it was her advantage during the concept note stage. And please be short when you prepare your concept note, and show your real passion to implement the project that you are you propose to the evaluation committee. Thank you. And I pass the floor to Nancy.
Thank you very much, Elena. Oh,
Yes.
we'll hand over to Nancy, but Elena, thank you very much. I wanted to say I'm really pleased that you mentioned how important it is to think of the feasibility of your fellowship project idea. And, you know, there's only 5,000 euros of financial support and about 6 months to implement. So you really have to have feasible ideas. And now, Nancy, our other fellow who is in our team and a new member of our team. Nancy, you're going to tell us a bit about yourself and another fellow.
Thank you, Simon, and thank you, Elena, and thanks every one of my colleagues. I'm signing under everything that you said. I'm Nancy. I'm from Armenia, and I'm really happy that after my fellowship project, which I implemented 2 years ago, right now I'm joining the team coordinating regional countries like Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. So I'm really hopeful to meet future fellows from this list. What I can tell about both of us, because I have had the pleasure to know Katavan, and also you see me. I will start from my project, what I did as a fellow. This has been very interesting experience because I was working and I was doing my fellowship based on my organization. So just a tip for you to know, if you have a civil society organization and you would like to do a fellowship based on that, that's a very good opportunity. Also take advantage of that, because due to my fellowship, I could do a research and I could come up with a manual, kind of a guidebook on mentorship, on how to be a mentor for someone as a volunteer and everything, and especially for EU funded projects like Erasmus+. And this guidebook, I'm very lucky to say that this guidebook is still being used by my organization to train the future members of our organization and future mentors. As for Ketavan, something similar also for her. She has done a research. She's from Georgia, by the way. We try to do different success stories from different countries. However, if we talk about our fellows, I think it would last many hours, because as Simon mentioned, we have almost 200 fellows. And Ketavan's experience is in Georgia, that she did a very high level policy recommendations about inclusivity in art, regarding people with disability working in art or design field. And she did some researches, and among her research findings, she came up with some recommendations, policy recommendations. She also organized workshops, meetings, and overall she did her project based on the research. Actually, both of us, we have common things. We did a research, but the outcome was quite also different. But something that I would agree with Olena, that it was much more feasible to do it only in a very small amount of budget. So this is my recommendation also to you. Feel free to apply, and we will be waiting for your application.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you very much. So there we've had some really nice stories from Nancy and Olena, and about Alexei and Ketavan. And as we've said before, you can read all about the 200 fellows that we have in Alumni on our web pages. And I really recommend that because they're kind of an inspiration, and they also will give you an idea of what's possible, what's not possible within a fellowship. So now let's move on to having a clear understanding of the application process and how your applications to become a fellow will be evaluated. The first point, the first step, is to strongly encourage you to read the guidelines for the fellowships. You can download the guidelines from our web pages. The guidelines are only 16 pages. Okay, so 16 pages, in less than an hour, you can read the guidelines. And I strongly encourage you to do so because probably every question that you have about the fellowships will be answered in the guidelines. So please do read them carefully. If there are things in the guidelines which you don't understand or concern you, you will be able to send us questions. And also in the guideline, it explained how you can send questions to us. But please do use the guidelines. They are quite simple. They're not overwhelming. They're there to help you with your application. Once you've read the guidelines and you have what you think is a feasible and relevant idea for a fellowship project, then you need to prepare your concept note. And the concept note has to be prepared and submitted to us online. The concept note form is very simple. It's just a few questions. It will not actually take you very long to complete the concept note. So you need to have clear thought before you start the application process, okay? Because the process itself is quite quick and easy to do. So you need to think about preparing your concept note, and then when you're happy with it, you fill in the details on the online form, and then you press the submit button. Once you've pressed the button to submit the online form, you cannot go back, and you cannot make a second application through a concept note. However, before you click on the submission button, you will be able to go back. You will be able to re-log in and to work on your concept note. So it's only at the point that you click the submission button that there's no going back. So have a look at the concept note format and think about what you need to include to make a successful online application. For any of you who have safety or other concerns about using an online form, in the guidelines, there is an explanation about how you can use a secure email address for our project to communicate with us. So if you have any concerns of your online safety, then please read in the guidelines of how you can contact us safely. Once you've submitted the online concept note, there will, of course, then be an evaluation process. And for steps 4 and 5, they will only be relevant to those of you who successfully pass the concept note stage. I have to stress that it is very competitive. We usually get more than 200 concept notes, and probably only around a third of those concept notes will score enough evaluation points to move on to the full application stage. If you're successful to move on from the concept note stage, you will hear from us. You will be invited to make a full application. And this is going to be the 4th step in becoming a fellow. The full application process, again, will be done online, but only those of you who pass the concept note stage will be provided with the relevant link to make the full application. For some of you, I mean, for most of you, we would hope that you would move from concept stage to full application stage. And there will be several weeks in which you will be able to then work on your full application, because the full application, of course, requires a bit more effort to make. It requires you to provide us with more information. So there is an incubation period to help you. And on some occasions, there are applicants who also need a little bit of support from our team. After the concept note stage, there are questions which they have, and across our team, we're able to also give some advice a bit on how to make your full application. So the fourth step is developing the full application. And then the fifth step is, of course, submitting the full application and all of the supporting documents. So I should stress here that at the concept note stage, we only ask you to complete quite a simple concept note application and to attach a CV. So at the concept note stage, we only need your concept note and your CV. There's no need for any other supporting documents. However, if you successfully move on to the full application stage, this is where we require you to submit all of the supporting documents which are requested in the guidelines. So that includes some proof of your level of English language. And again, I think there are quite a few questions about this, what will be the English language level. You don't need to send us proof of your language until you have successfully moved on to the full application stage. And we accept different kinds of proofs of your language. We don't have one set approach here. The reason being is that we want to encourage you to apply and we want you to be fellows. And we don't want the language requirement to be an issue for you, but because we're not meeting you face to face, we need to have something in writing which will convince us that you have an appropriate level of English. There's a lot more details in the guidelines about the supporting documents. It's not just about language, it is also about the references that we would need from those that you work with, those people that know you, who can support your experience. So go to the guidelines, have a look at what's required in terms of the supporting documents. I've already mentioned that the online concept note is really simple to do. The form itself is broken down into 3 sections. The first section is asking questions about yourself. So we just need to know who you are, your personal contacts, your level of education, and where you are working, where you are based. The second part of the concept note is to understand your experience and your motivation to be a fellow. So there are a couple of questions which ask you about your experience and your motivation. And then the last part of the concept note is what you intend to do with your fellowship. What's the purpose of a fellowship? Who is going to benefit from your fellowship? So they're the 3 areas of the concept note form. And I say you need to think about this, have a look at the form online before you finally fill it in and press the submission note. And again, as I've already mentioned, and it says here on the slides, once you've submitted your concept note, you cannot make another submission. You can't make 2 submissions. To ensure that you get selected in this competitive process, I would bring your attention to a couple of points. Firstly, you need to make sure that your idea of a fellowship project is really relevant. Is your fellowship project really needed? What's the justification for your project? Can other people relate to it? Will they be able to say, yes, that's an important project to go ahead? You have to think to yourself, what difference will my fellowship project make? Who is going to benefit from my fellowship project? And you need to be able to explain in the full application, you'll need to explain who your beneficiaries will be. We also ask you to explain in the concept note briefly who is going to benefit from your fellowship. So these are the key questions which help the evaluation committee to decide whether your concept note is relevant or not. We also, of course, do administrative checks on eligibility. So please make sure that you're eligible, that you meet all the eligibility criteria, and make sure that you complete the full the concept note in full. When you go online, you look at the concept note application form, you will see that where there are questions being asked, you have very limited space to respond to them. Very often you only have up to 500 characters, which you can use. But we would encourage you to complete the form in full. If you can use 500 characters, then use 500 characters, or at least 499. Use the space available to you. Make sure you answer every part of the concept note. Make sure you upload your CV at the end of the concept note where we request you to upload. And make sure you fill the concept note in English. In the evaluation guidelines, on one of the pages, it explains to you how your concept note will be evaluated. And I would like to draw your attention to this because when you're filling in your concept note, you should really be aware of how the concept note is going to be evaluated, how it's going to be scored. So our evaluation committee will be awarding a maximum of 18 points for concept notes. And to get that maximum score, you need to get the maximum score on each of these elements in the evaluation grid. So your experience, which at this point you can't change, we will evaluate that in terms of what you tell us in your concept note and what's written into your CV. So if in your concept note you're telling us that you're experienced in civil society, but your CV tells us that you spent the last 10 years working as a chef in a restaurant, that's not very helpful for us. We need to be able to look at your CV and see that it matches with the experience you put in your concept note. So in your concept note and with your CV, try to maximize the 3 points there, which are on offer. Secondly, try to maximize how you explain your motivation to be a fellow. This is a really important part. It's just one question in the concept note, but think carefully what you want to tell to the evaluation committee. If you want them to avoid 3 points, you need to be really clear on your motivation. Then, in terms of the what you're proposing as a fellowship, you need to ensure that the purpose of your fellowship is feasible and is clear. You need to make sure that what you're proposing to do in your fellowship matches to your experience. We often have applications, people who want to do fellowship projects which have no relationship at all to the personal experience of the fellow. So make sure that your experience, your current skills and knowledge are a good fit to what you want to do with your fellowship project. We want you to be able to explain a clear outcome and justification for your fellowship project, and you need to explain who will be the beneficiaries of your fellowship. So for all of those criteria that I've just mentioned, there are 3 points available. So that gives us a total of 15. Now, if you want to earn extra points, this is where the theme for this first call in 2025 becomes relevant. For any of you who make an application which is on the theme that relates to the environment or combating climate change, there are additional points available. So, I mean, for example, if you have an idea of contributing to contributing towards the circular economy in your community, that would earn you extra points in our evaluation. Perhaps you want to do some education around helping people to understand more about carbon emissions. Perhaps you want to do some action that will support environmental protection in your community. That would score you some extra points. Or perhaps if you're involved already in this area and you were keenly following the recent COP29 in Azerbaijan, you might want to do something which helps to follow up from COP29 from a civil society point of view. So there are extra points available on this theme, and potentially you could score 18 points altogether. In order to pass forward from the concept note stage to full application stage, you need to score a minimum of 12 points. So the evaluation committee will score your concept notes, and those which score above 12 will be asked to make a full application. A reminder here on what has happened in the past, where you really need to be careful of the lessons learned from those who've made previous applications. The common reason for failure is that the applicant is not eligible. The second most common reason is that the fellowship project proposals just simply are not realistic, or they're really unclear. They're difficult for the evaluation committee to understand. A third common reason is the lack of experience or background of the applicant to actually have the capacity to implement the fellowship project. This, unfortunately, is often an area where there is weakness in applications. And also, we've seen that often applications don't score well on explaining who the beneficiaries will be. So you need to really carefully consider all those things. As I've mentioned, only those that are successful at the concept note stage will be invited to move forward to the full application stage. And you have a little bit more time to do your full application. And it is at the stage of the full application that you need to think a little bit about the budget for your fellowship project. You need to elaborate the objective and the activities of your fellowship project. And as I've already mentioned, you'll be asked to upload your supporting documents. But you only need to do that at the full application stage. And just to give you an idea of the timeline, the call is now open. And the closing date for submission of concept notes is the 30th of December. So you have just over 3 weeks to do your concept note. We will close the concept note form on the 30th of December, at midnight on the 30th of December. And then the evaluation committee will be reviewing your concept notes, and we will then be in contact with you. And those that are successful, you will be invited to make the full applications. And the full applications deadline for full applications will be the 7th of February. I should also note to you that the evaluation committee will be assessing the concept notes on a rolling basis. So those who actually submit them earlier are likely to hear in advance from the evaluation committee, so you get yourself a little bit more time. So I'm telling you this because you don't wait until the 30th of December to make your application. Think carefully what you want to apply to do, but please do it as soon as you can, because the sooner you make your application, the sooner your application will be evaluated. And if you're successful, then you'll have more time to work on your full application. For those of you who are successful, and we hope that many of you with us in the webinar will be, we will make the awards in March, and then you'll be able to implement your fellowship projects from April onwards. So in terms of planning, sometimes the time frame, the seasons of your fellowship can be important. So April to September will be the implementation period. So make sure you're aware of that. Okay, I'm going to come to an end now because I mentioned it'd be quite a long presentation, but I think it's time for me to end, and we can have a little look at questions that you've been sending to us which we haven't yet answered.
Dan, we have a number of the questions. Regarding the English language certificate. I suggest we start with them because it's a question from Igor. From Igor Michurin, what is the requirement for language certification BY level to apply? What is the requirement for recommendation letter? Okay, that's the second question. Similar one could EF SET English certificate be a proof of English level knowledge? The same from Igor. And if I wrote and published a book in English or lecture in university in English, would it count as language mastery proof?
Of course.
Good questions. They are common questions, aren't they? We often get this.
So
kind
basically, it's all the questions.
Yeah.
So what we consider as a proof of the English language skills?
Okay, let's start with the level. I think if you go to the guidelines, it explains what level we expect, and there's a link that takes you to a particular site of the Commission, which explains about levels of English. So that will give you an idea of what we're looking for. In terms of how you prove your English, prove to us your level of English, as I've already mentioned, we don't have a set list of proof documents on language. We're very open. We want you to prove to us that you have good enough English. So it might be a certificate I mean, the one that was mentioned in one of those questions, I'm not quite sure what that is. And we don't have a definitive list of certificates that we accept. So please upload any certificate that you think will be relevant. If the evaluation committee has a problem with it, we'll come back to you and ask you for a different kind of proof. If you don't have any certificate, but you clearly have experience, for example, teaching in a university in English language, or in any kind of work environment using English as the working language, then ask one of your colleagues that you work with or one of your managers to give you a letter which proves that you use English language to work with. So a letter from a manager from your workplace would be proof of your English language. So we're trying to be really open, and we don't want to make this too difficult for you. But as I mentioned in the presentation, we don't know you. We read documents. We can't tell necessarily how good your English is. And we all know now that with artificial intelligence, everyone potentially has brilliant written English. But we need to know that you can work in English. I mentioned before, we have a lot of benefits of the fellowships, which requires you to use English. So we just need to be sure. So
Yes.
I hope that's clear.
If I can add as well, so if you're not sure that you can communicate and implement the project and report in English, so please be careful. I mean, it's one thing to pass the concept note, and then you will go into trouble preparing the whole proposal. And then it is possible that we will conduct interviews before, like we will need to discuss proposal, and then we will actually know if you don't spell. So do not try to sort of pretend that you do and then not, because after all this work, we might not be able to collaborate with you for this reason, okay?
Exactly. Thank you. I think that was the question. There was one follow-up, just read, what about video of lectures as YouTube in English? I haven't fully understand this. Whoever wrote the question, could you please elaborate on this? I'm gonna dismiss this question because what about video of lectures as YouTube in English? I didn't really understand the question. Please write this so far. Okay, another simple question as a warm-up, Simon. Do I need to use special CD format, like, for example, Europass, etc.?
Again, we try to be as inclusive and as open as possible, don't we, in terms of the fellowship applications? So we don't provide any one format. We would definitely encourage you to use the formats used by the European Union. So either within the community, so the Europass, or the other kinds of formats that the EU suggests. In our guidelines, again, there is a link to the format of the EU, but you don't have to use that format. What you have to do is make sure your CV is short, because the evaluation committee will not be happy to go through 10 pages of a CV. It's like any kind of application. We want it short. The information has to be presented clearly in an understandable way, and it has to relate to your application for your fellowship. I mentioned that we did once get someone who applied and the CV just told us that they were a chef in a restaurant and there was nothing about civil society in it. So please make sure your CV is relevant, but there's no one format for submitting your CV. But it should be in English again, I should mention.
Yes. Yes, that is an important. Please make sure your CV is in English, because unfortunately we don't have that many skills, language skills, to assess all this. Okay, again, a bit more of the on the general thing, and I'll come to then further two questions. Again, from Ihar, and then there is what are the requirements for recommendation letters from the organization partners? And a similar question. So, do you have to have someone recommending you for the fellowship?
Yes, whether you're applying as a community engagement fellow or a civic digital, you do need to upload at the full application stage. We do ask you to upload a reference letter. So this is just a way in which we can be sure what you're telling us is true. As Olga mentioned, occasionally we do need to follow up to check. So a reference letter from the head of an organization that you work with or you've been a volunteer for, that's a good way for we could check that. So it has to be a reference letter, the same as when you're applying for a job. And particularly we want to see a reference from from someone who can vouch for you, who can tell us that yes, that you've been active in civil society in some way. So the best way is to get that from a manager from a organization that you work with or you volunteer for. It might be that you have done something brilliant in your community and the mayor of your municipality would like to provide a reference letter to say how great activists you are. That would be good as well. For those of you who want to apply to Civic Digital, we understand that you work in different ways. And so perhaps we would like to have a reference letter for someone who can again just vouch for or to prove what you claim in your application. Ira, maybe you want to say something on the Civic Digital references?
Yes, on the Civic Digital reference, it's a bit different. It's similar, but a different story. In a way, you have more freedom here because you can have two types of people supporting you. For instance, this can be somebody who knows your technical skills. They can actually write you a reference letter saying, yes, I know that this person has good skills in developing and experience in developing IT solutions, and he's very passionate about the cause, and I'm sure that he will be able to develop a new solution or, prepare this data set or whatever. So basically, somebody who knows you from this area of expertise that you're applying for. Or it can be a person who knows you and can recommend you and say and confirm that, yes, this person is very working in a whatever area, but this person is actually very passionate about the course and has the experience of working for this, be that stray dogs, as we had, for instance, one of our fellows, or be that fundraising, or be this data, whatever. But yes, you can have a recommendation letter. One is good enough. You don't have to go for two as a Civic Digital. Applying you either as a technical expert, confirming your IT skills, relevant IT skills, or somebody confirming your social engagement, civic engagement. Okay, with this being said, I'll continue. There is one question that I would like to take more seriously. So how will our personal information be treated? Can we put sensitive information, Sam?
Well, I think hopefully we're answering everything in a serious way.
Yeah, I mean, this is like, I understand the concerns, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we of course everything that we receive is taken in complete confidence, and the team and GDSI that manages the team follows all the privacy of personal data, the regulations from the EU. So yes, absolutely, everything is kept confidential.
I will also keep up here, and I will post the link to the response to that and actually the follow-up text, because for you to know that all the information, whenever you open, the moment you open the application form, the concept note application form, you have there the text that says how we're going to treat the information. And yes, whatever information we obtain from you is treated exclusively for the assessment, for the needs of for the assessment by the Evaluation Commission, for the assessment of your concept note and for the assessment of your experience. No further information is not shared anywhere further. I hope this answers this question. I fully understand the concern. Okay, a bit more to the okay, and a bit more to the questions then one by one. Question from Yuri Barbaros. Civil society in Moldova is heavily underfunded. Is there a quota of funds for civil society in emerging countries from the EU Neighborhood Partnership?
Olga, is that one for you?
Yes, I can answer that. Indeed. So EU actually supports Moldova quite well. Also, new programs are being prepared at the moment in Geneva because of the accession process. So there is a new growth plan has been developed in collaboration with the Moldova government on how to support, including the role of civil society in the accession process. More specifically, in the application process for the fellowship, we do try to preserve a kind of balanced approach and have people from all countries represented as fellows. So we try to maintain this both thematical and regional aspects of the applications.
Thank you. The next question is for me, also from Yuri. Generating, publishing new data batches, can it be from the investigative journalism, or sent articles? Okay, I'm answering this question live. It's a bit kind of more in details, already going into the thematic. Theoretically, this falls under the, whatever you suggest, falls under the area of generating new data sets. The only question, the only what you need to concern, whenever it comes to that it must be machine readable data set. So something that you can theoretically then upload to, and that makes searchable on the website. And sometimes it's hard to explain, data sets can vary from images to text and whatever. And while I saw your question, I decided to go and find this research, for this. And I'll publish a couple of the links here below to make sure that this answers your question. So if you read the examples, it's going to be answered. Yes. So it must be data set, it must be published, it must be accessible for free to the users so they can reuse it for either producing digital solution or doing research or whatever. I hope this answers the question. I'll publish the notes in a second. I will pass.
We received a very interesting question, if I may, with Muftisan. If we can go in more detail about exchanging experience or conducting research.
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
European Union or European countries and how the program supports finding partners. So we inspire applicants to do it themselves. First of all, we do have, in fact, a list of organizations on various thematic subjects that work in the European Union or maybe on the whole European Union level, but also a few countries from different countries of the European Union. However, we rely that you yourself select a suitable organization and initiate contact with them if necessary and agree what could be done so that in your application, in your full application, there is some sort of at least letter of intent that they would like to have you in their offices, for example. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Olga. I think you marked this as done. Simon, a bit easier question from Maria. Nice. What if we already had our concept note applied on the website? Is it possible to make any changes in it after this webinar?
Okay, sorry, Maria, if you have already submitted a concept note, you cannot go back and change it now. But so I'm sorry, no, you can't. But you asked that question saying we have or our, makes me think that you are not working alone. So I would recommend that a different person, whoever wants to be the fellow, could make the application. But once you've submitted the concept note, you cannot change it. You cannot make another application.
Thank you, Simon. This is a question a bit trickier. It's from anonymous. So whoever wrote this question, please feel free to follow later on in the discussion in the Q&A. I'm not sure should I apply or not. If my idea requires recurring investment every time it is implemented, it won't be enough to make a big impact on civil society, but just implementing it once. To bring this idea to different communities, significant funding is needed each time, which is a serious amount. If I accept this condition and still manage to positively impact a small part of civil society, would it still be considered a suitable idea? I'll try to answer this question the way I understand. Simon, please feel free. Maybe you will start on this because it's just nice to hear and nice to see and hear Irina again. So I'm just curious, was it a question to me? But I think maybe you should start with answering this question.
Do you? The thing about the fellowships in general is that we support a fellow to implement a fellowship project over quite a short period of time with quite a small amount of money. but those applications are evaluated in terms of what is the purpose. Is it feasible? Will it be achieved? And therefore, that is really what you have to think about. So if you're thinking to do something which absolutely will not be sustained, will not make any difference to your sector, your community, then it will not be evaluated highly. However, it might be that you want to do something which would be a first step and it will be sustained thereafter. Then it might be something possible. But I think in terms of the technical aspects, what's being alluded to here, Ira, probably is more.
Yes, I also understand this, that some projects can be really large, right? And especially IT projects, for instance, I talk about from my experience. Some of the IT projects can be really large, and they do need like support all the time. But you can also consider, but they can also be piloted or broke into the parts, which then further contribute to a bigger part, to a bigger thing. So basically, if you talk about piloting or implementing a specific part that will build up and become a part of something bigger, I think, yes, you can apply. And I always suggest to apply and just write a concept note. Concept note, submitting a concept note doesn't take too much time. It's not. It's like when we all test it and we all try it, and basically, well, it can be, you don't need to put the budget together. You don't need to put like detailed description of the activities and everything. This goes for the full stage application. But the only thing you need to write there is to explain what you want to achieve in general with your fellowship, like our overall goal and objective, what you would like to do, and what you kind of, in a few words, what you're gonna specifically do to achieve it. So you are not sure, just try to submit a concept note. At this moment, except for the CV, nothing is required, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Ira. I would say have a go, make the application. Why not? But just to build on what you've just been saying, and I think it helps to answer one of the other questions we have outstanding here. There's a question that says, I'd like to ask if we can enlarge an existing project with the fellowship award. I think the important thing is to remember that the fellowship program is not a grant scheme. We're not giving grants for projects. The emphasis is on the fellow. The emphasis is on you as people in your communities who want to make a difference. And so the fellowship is awarded to you as an individual. It might be that you have an idea to build on something that has already happened in your community. That's okay. You can justify that, and then you can explain your role and how you're going to build on whatever it is that you want to build onto. That's fine. But remember that the fellowship is something as an individual support. It's not a grant mechanism. We're not giving grants to organizations to do projects. So it is not just a funding source. It's the fellowship is about trying to help you as an individual activist, someone who wants to contribute to your community. So it's not a good mechanism just to get funding to do another part of a project or to repeat something that's already been done in the past.
Yep. As I say, it can be, it's always, please have it to go, discuss it, send it, and we will see. Yeah, in IT projects, developing an MVP or piloting is okay. In some of things, it's not. Simon, I will pass the floor to you on this one. To what extent is it appropriate to exhibit a such artistic photography project to raise an awareness of the state of oil pollution in the Caspian Sea, especially during the COP 2029 period?
Well, it sounds interesting. We like our fellows to demonstrate their creativity, so we would definitely encourage this. But I would just go back to my previous comment that to remember you have to think about the purpose of your fellowship project. So you have to be clear in your application that something will change as a result of what you want to do. It might be that you can use exhibition of artwork to create a change. But you have to explain that, and obviously just having an exhibition is itself not going to make a change. There's more to it than that. But we've had plenty of fellows who've worked in the area of art and culture, and they make changes in their communities in lots of different ways. So again, as we've already said, go ahead with an application. You have nothing to lose. It's quite an easy process. But just remember that the fellowship is not a funding mechanism just to do a project or to pay for an exhibition. This is not there. You have to develop it more than that.
Exactly. Olga wants to take the next question. I see about the research can be a project.
Yes, I mean, the same, repeating what Simon already said. Research can be a project. However, it is more important to know how you're going to use this research, whether it will be used as part of advocacy action or who will benefit from that research. So the short answer is research for the sake of research is not a project, but research with some purpose and further out activities, then it is a project, of course.
And this answers the next question that I'm going to mark as also answered. Can fellowship include research only in a specific will to contribute for certain communities and policy making? So basically, that's the answer that Olga just mentioned, that the research itself is not enough. You need to make sure that the results of the research, the findings are somehow built upon, and Nancy gave an example of several. Exactly, Nancy gave two.
And brought some results, or at least attempted to bring some results in policy or strategy or communication or some benefit. And it's also important to emphasize when you think about the project. So implementing this project that benefits community is very important also from the point of view that you as a fellow also gain this leadership experience by implementing this project. So this is also very important. So demonstrating in your concept how it benefits you as a leader, how to develop your own skills in this area is also important. Okay. There was about...
We have 2 more questions left. I will start with about the theme. If my idea does not address directly environment and combating climate change issues, it's not the main purpose, but it touches the subject in terms of long-term impact indirectly. Shall I bring details for extra points, or it wouldn't be countable because it does not serve as the main goal?
Good question. If your fellowship idea does directly and totally contribute to environment protection or combating climate change, you're likely to get the maximum of extra 3 points. But if you're just making some contribution, as you explained there, that it might just indirectly contribute, as long as that is clear in your concept note, that it is somehow explained how it contributes, then the evaluation committee can award you some extra points. But we can't make guesses. The evaluation committee has to have it written into your concept note how you think your purpose of your fellowship will contribute to the theme of environment and combating climate change.
Okay. And the last question that I can see here, I was wondering if €5,000 budget is a standard. Can it be less or more?
Yes. So when deciding on the activities, so it's at the later stage, deciding what kind of activities you like to plan and implement to achieve objectives that you present in your concept note at this stage, it will be important for you to plan so that you fit into that. If it's a little bit less, of course, it's possible, but maybe you could think to add activities, for example, more visibility or more promotion. Or if it exceeds, we will see how important that the budget, the detailed budget is for the implementation of the project. So all the budgets at the later stage will be considered on their own merits and whether the proposed activity is designed in a way that it helps you achieve the objectives and the hit results. So in this case, there will be negotiation at that stage, and we will help you to do that. Maybe, Irina, we can ask another question that was asked in the chat, but not, I tried to answer there, and I don't know if it was received. So there was a question about supporting people from some countries and whether specifically, for example, Belarus. So
yes.
as already been stated, so this fellowship program, EU Civil Society, Eastern Partnership Civil Society Facility Program, should benefit the people who are civically minded and also in a bigger community. However, as you know, we face ourselves with the situation that lots of people from various countries in this region find themselves abroad, for various reasons, including with the kind of conflict with authorities and being kind of critically minded to various for their views and opinions. So those people who are abroad in these countries can also apply, and their target groups can include their compatriots essentially abroad. So that community can become the target group as well. So I hope this answered the question so that people do not confuse. This is a civil society, this is democratization and improvement of democratic governance project. So with this in mind, this fellowship program was designed.
Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, colleagues. I don't see any more open questions, and I see participants slowly leaving us, which I believe is a good sign that we covered whatever was there. I stopped the
We've covered
recording.
everything. Great. Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks to everybody.